Hello to the zero of you that are excited about the market right now. I've titled this video, No One is going to watch this, for some ironic reasons, but my point is I'm getting the feeling that people might be a bit too bearish at the moment, and I'll get into why I'm seeing that and what I'm kind of thinking right now in this video made on Sunday, March 1st, and it's just a general update. So I want to put this up at the beginning this time, um, just so everyone remembers that none of this is investment advice. Now, why is that? Well, because especially now, I'm about to say a number of really stupid things, and you're going to be like, what are you talking about? You were just saying, but anyway, not investment advice. Remember, do your own research, think for yourself, what makes sense for you, not what I say. Okay, so why did I title this video, No One is going to watch this? Well, I know that my channel is far from something that would be called popular, but I still do have my own the set of analytics in the YouTube Creator Studio. Now, I may have pissed off the YouTube algo by saying something or doing something or making too many videos about stuff that it doesn't want me talking about, or I'm not saying that I'm saying that stuff that I don't normally talk about so no one watches. But the point is, in the last few days, this channel that talks about market related content has basically grinded to a halt, and not only in new subscribers, but in views. And I mean, I know this is just an allegorical little tale, but there's not only this, and people don't exactly seem super bullish right now. And I mean, it's not just the channel. You look at the CNN Fear and Greed Index, which is just a thing that I like to look at when it's at extremes. When it's in the middle, I kind of don't really pay much attention. I just kind of check if it's at extremes. And now we're approaching kind of an extreme bearishness type level because it is at 10 out of 100, and all categories are in the extreme fear um, qualification or whatever. And it was 9 out of 100 on Friday morning. So, I mean, I know that the market has barely moved. I mean, 10%, I mean, that's a move, but it's not like a vicious crash or whatever. So it hasn't really moved that much, but people seem pretty scared at the moment. So really, when you looked out Friday morning, you looked at the market, you looked at, okay, well, who wants to go long into this weekend? Who wants to own stocks into this weekend? I couldn't think of a single good reason at the time. So I thought around 10 a.m., and I tweeted about this at the time, I thought that now would be a time to start trying to light money on fire. And by that, I mean, looking out, saw nothing good happening. Everyone would seem to be pretty bearish, so it might be an opportunity to start deploying some capital. Why? Why buy when there's basically no reason to buy? Well, am I the only one that sees that there's no reason to buy? Probably not. Everyone seemed pretty scared. You could look at the stocks. You look at, I don't know, on the morning, everything was down. Everything. I was looking at maybe moving some money from one position to another, but like everything was down, and it just looked like, okay, well, no, there's no selling this to buy that. Everything everywhere seemed pretty panicked. The VIX, the volatility index, was in the high 40s. It almost hit 50. It doesn't do that a lot. And normally the VIX spike is near the end of selling. Now, obviously, it could go to 80, but high 40s, almost VIX at 50 is pretty high. And so, yeah, I couldn't think of a reason why anyone would want to own stocks going into the weekend. So everyone's selling, even, and especially this, even what I'll call the YOLO call crowd. And by that I mean people who are buying call options on the stocks that are going straight up because they're going straight up. So even those stocks seem to be dumped. Now, some of you may have noticed the asterisk on the last slide, and to those who missed it, well, hit J one or two times on your keyboard and you will see where the asterisk is. What makes me less comfortable about this idea? Well, later in the day, I saw there's a bunch of people speculating about an emergency rate cut on the weekend, and honestly, I doubt it. I don't think that that's going to happen. And there's a bunch of people that are saying that the coronavirus cases have peaked. I don't think that that has happened, but I mean, it has happened on the charts, but I don't think that its long-term peak. But basically, I started seeing some people that were talking about how good Friday was, or how Friday was a good day, or the things had turned, or whatever later in the day, and that made me feel less comfortable that people were talking about how this, seeming to talk about how this might be over, even though I was thinking that the near-term selling might be over, which is why I bought things. Seeing so many people talking about it, not a good feeling. Now, before I'm attacked by the three people that still are on this channel and watched the last video, where I said, or recent videos where I said I'm concerned about the coronavirus, I am. I am concerned about the coronavirus. Everyone at this point is either concerned or saying there's no reason to be concerned, but still looking, well, those who are in the markets are looking at it and saying, coronavirus. And I'll tell you one thing, people aren't bullish about the coronavirus and its impact on markets. Now, I also kept saying that this isn't the end of the world. On the other side of whatever happens with the coronavirus, the world will continue. Now, it could easily play out worse around the world than it did in China. However, the rest of the world does have the warning that seeing what happened in China and looked at how they were dealing with it and so forth. But the one thing I will say is almost 1 billion people were locked down in China, and their official numbers peaked, well, around 6 weeks after. So we're looking at less than a quarter of disruption. And to this news, to the 780 million people or whatever that were locked down in China and all the panic and all whatever, the Chinese stock market dropped 10% approximately. And here we are after the official peak in cases, and it's now 6% off its high. And we're looking at this, and the US was down Friday morning, or is down now, about 10%. Again, at this point, we're really only down 10%. This hasn't been like a 50% crash, 25% correction, bear market, whatever you want to call it. And this situation, this setup, if you will, of like what's going on, I think it would be easier, I mean, for me at least, to buy if we were down a whole lot. But at this point, we've only moved down 10, and the market as a whole is, I wouldn't call it cheap yet. I mean, obviously there are parts of it that are maybe inexpensive, but the market as a whole seems barely moved. Now, obviously, things could get much worse, and I know there are a number of people that are looking at what's going on and looking at how much worse it can get and thinking that the time to buy might be when everyone's talking about it and everyone's panicked. And to a degree, that might be true. However, I would point to the fact that there's already a number of stores that have flash emptied, and around the world, I know people in the markets are talking about it, but some people say that people outside markets aren't. But in certain places, there is already the state of emergency slash panic mentality. And yeah, it could get much worse depending on how this plays out. But I'm just saying, I think that if you had a bunch of cash on the sidelines, I had some cash on the sidelines. I think this is a decent point to look at starting to deploy it on things that make sense. Now, I want to be crystal clear here. It is a big deal what's going on. And I also want to be very clear that I haven't seen enough evidence to make me think that the case count, the official number for the case count, has peaked. I would doubt that. However, you look at the markets, you look at everyone in the markets is now talking about it. You look at the news, it's everywhere in the news. Everyone is talking about the coronavirus, and no one is bullish because of it. I mean, aside from Alpha Pro Tech, great name, by the way. I need to name a company Alpha Pro Tech, except I can't because it's already taken. Anyway, and Co-Diagnostics, I think, CODX. So people are super bullish on those, but on general stocks, they seem to be pretty much sold off across the board. So while it is a big deal, I my point is I don't think there's too many people that are unaware of it or the impact that it could potentially have at this point. Now, I do think some people are slightly in denial about the extent of it, and maybe I'm underestimating how many people are like that there are, and that is my biggest concern at this point. So basically, in conclusion, the bullish thesis at this point is that there's just kind of too much pessimism. And I mean, this is my view. Obviously, I don't think that we've seen the worst of the coronavirus, and I don't think that everything is 100% contained on the slightest. I do think that there were some areas that were dumped along with everything else in the panic, and those are areas at which I'm looking right now. I don't think this is the worst time to start buying. I know that this may sound crazy, especially because of my views on the coronavirus. Now, for those who are waiting for everyone to be bearish in order to buy, like everyone being the general public, well, I know that my neighbor was panicked on Monday about stocks, and she doesn't really follow stocks that closely. And also, I mean, there's stories from Washington, particularly in Thursday or Friday, where stores were empty, lines up out the door in the US. So I think there's more actual panic or actual fear than is what is being led on. And I think that there's a negative story that everyone's talking about it. So now's not the worst time to start buying.